Hello. I'm trying to film on a Linux, but it's being kind of choppy. I installed it on my M1 MacBook Air. Here's Sky. It's pretty cozy. Just drove from San Diego to Planet Fitness Simi Valley. It's all foggy, you can't really see. Got this orange mask for the gym, it's kind of cool. White in, Amazon Prime, barefoot shoes, high tops, canvas outsole, synthetic insole, very comfy. Starbucks, cafe mocha, coffee. Wisdom cards. Book I'm trying to use like tarot. Mandarin. This chocolate was really good. Kind of matches everything. Green laser enhancement glasses that do all kinds of wondrous things to color, and I'm wearing them on my head. Raw optics. Some tobacco, rolling paper, and whatever this strain of weed is that my homies hooked me up with down at the lab. Super Freak 710 Labs. Honda Pilot 2007 V6 front wheel drive. Wish it didn't have leather seats, but this is Homer, my vehicle. I named him Homer, like Homer Simpson. He's my home, literally. This guy. And also like the Iliad and Odyssey, because if you can't tell, I have white skin, so it means I'm basically from Europe, ancestrally. It's a book I got about iOS development, Objective-C. Shout out Logan Allen for recommending that Objective-C is the best programming language ever. I guess they're gonna retire Swift or something, unless I read the news wrong. What was the other book I got? Yeah, Risk 5. Pretty cool cover. Shout out these guys. Patterson's a Berkeley professor. Waterman is a, where did she study? This is pretty cool, right? Endorsed by Bell Labs, Sci-Fi, University of Washington. Android is being worked on for Risk 5, architecture, Linux, of course. So Apple Silicon is ARM64, which is not the same as Risk 5, but like I don't know, in the universe everything is the same. Vishnu's everywhere, so it's basically the same thing. So I kind of read this like a tarot book too. Oh yeah, pens. Walmart, instant enriched, pre-cooked long grain white rice. More Starbucks coffee. If you can't tell, I'm surprisingly calm. Pencil. Hate to say it, but condoms, just, I don't know. Shout out Osho. Very pro birth control and contraceptives. Hemp wick. So to not inhale as much butane when I smoke, but not unlike Joseph's, when I smoke, I use big lighters. This is blue. And when I smoke tobacco, American Spirit, shout out Mom. Ingredients, tobacco and water. I actually, man, my skin's becoming kind of like red, but it's like healing over, scarring over. Kind of looks cool with the mask in the gym. It's not the Rust programming language. I actually literally found this like rusty like hubcap thing. Can you see? It's literally just like rusty thing. I don't know. I found it on the road and I put it in this bag from Amish Market in New York City when I was hanging out with my girlfriend there. Shout out to girlfriend. More mystic cards or oracle cards. Just gifted this by a lovely woman, Toltec Path, but I like the Castaneda books better, no offense, but this isn't bad. Manic Boy Keaton thought maybe I found this on the ground, like maybe, I don't know, this is like some kind of satellite electromagnetic radioactive tracker satellite thing or something. Well, I mean, that's kind of what this is, fast track, even though I'm not in the Bay Area. Olipop, classic gray. My car dashboard, I usually fill up at Chevron, but 76 is good, Shell's good, they're all good. Mom got this for me at a thrift shop. I like this a lot. Reminds me of Krishna. There's not really a right way or a wrong way to wear it, but it's kind of like a nice little scarf thing. Maybe I will wear it. I like it. It helps calm me down, I guess. I've had like a long day. It actually helps with myopia. Anybody who experiences difficulty looking at distances are the opposite of distance glasses. These are just readers. Like I can see perfectly close, but when I'm not needing my distance vision. Not bad. Pretty tired. I was gonna maybe. So my idea is I've been inspired a lot musically, of course. Somebody who I kind of forgot about. Sadly, I'm sad that I forgot about him. But hemp dog leash really comes in handy. Towels, cashew nuts, blankets, just purified drinking water. Hey Sky, that was Sky's first toy, dinosaur back there. I finally organized my car. I know it looks like a disaster, but you would actually be surprised. It's like the most organized it's been. Shout out to my sun and Virgo, my astrology, solar placement in my birth chart. Go to horoscopes.astro-seek.com, horoscopes.astro-seek.com. Do a tropical zodiac, sidereal, nakshatra, Vedic astrology birth chart, and there's some options that I turn off, but I turn on the lunar nodes, turn off Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and turn off Fortune, Chiron. There's like 2 other ones that I turn off, but anyway, you can redraw the chart and then see your 7, if you include the 2 luminaries, the sun and the moon. Ancient Vedic people considered that to be the 2 of the 7 planets which are visible. Like, with modern astronomy and telescopes and whatnot, of course, we know there are more celestial bodies, but the ancient Vedics just looked with their eyes and they saw that the stars basically stayed fixed, or Sanskrit means they're Dhruva, which is named after the story from the Bhagavatam. But then the entities in the sky, because they move, that's why the Vedic people gave them like the attributes of being like people, namely like royalty, because they move, and that's what animals, alive beings do, is they move. So sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So my sun is in Virgo, moon is in Pisces, Mercury is in Cancer, Venus is in Cancer, Mars is also in Cancer, Jupiter is in Capricorn, and Saturn is in Aries and Aquarius rising. And then the nakshatras are the 27. Check out the YouTube playlist by my favorite astrologer on YouTube, Vic DeCara. The playlist is called Life Lessons from the Vedic Nakshatras. That's N-A-K, romanized S-H-A-T-R-A-S. Got these Levi jeans from thrift shop. Saguaro foam, or sorry, not foam, rubber Amazon shoes for the rain and stuff. This guitar I got at Norm's Rare Guitars in Tarzana, in the Valley in North LA, and it was made in Japan. It's a Takamine. I traded a gift I received from a friend for it. Anyway, what I was gonna say is, so there's this guitarist, a singer, his name's Eric Gales, and he plays a righty guitar left-handed, but without flipping the strings. So he plays like how Jimi Hendrix first learned, basically plays upside down. And I don't know, there's no way that I can do that right now, but I'm not even gonna try to like, see, the thing about guitar for me is it's like basically just meditative. It's not about like, what's on my mixtape is actually not really that good or that technical, I guess. It's just like, it's just what I like. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Or maybe not, maybe that's pretty straightforward. Pretty sure I tuned this to this is a drop, E flat. This sounds flat. Maybe I should go to drop E. I don't know. Sky seems pretty rested. See, a lot of acoustic players play with these thumb picks, like Tommy Emmanuel, countless others. There's an LA musician I saw at open mic, J. Lee Campbell. He's amazing. He plays with a finger or his thumb pick. Check out his Instagram. But this is a nylon string guitar. So the experiment that I want to do, I'm basically out of money right now because I spent it all on basically getting this mixtape out. But what I want to do next is, so I've been messing around with different kinds of strings. So you'll notice, you hear that squeaky noise? So on the mixtape, that sound comes up a lot because I use different guitars that have different strings, but there's a type of string called a flat wound string, which I put on the last video I did. I showed you the Mitchell Guitar Center short scale bass, or I'm using it like a sitar 3-string wide spacing alien freak hybrid baritone experiment, basically. And I put flat wound strings on it, but the thing is it's nice, it's like skateboarding. Like when you have grip tape, it's nice to like, you can do tricks when things are grippy, but when they're flat, they're kind of slippery. So basically it kind of makes bending harder, I've noticed, with the flat wound strings. And I'm not the first person to experience this, but you know, you try stuff out and see what you like and what you don't like, just like anything in life. We all have our preferences. Some people like strawberry, some people like raspberry. Like I like these glasses when I wear them, even if I look kind of crazy, wearing a bunch of stuff. I don't know, it helps. So what's the point? So what I was thinking of doing, I did this with an experiment on a song that I haven't released the finished mix of yet, but there's a demo version out. It's a cover I did of The House of the Rising Sun on an Alvarez acoustic guitar, where I realized that if you take two different gauges of guitar strings, where it's basically measured in millimeters, so there's like 9 gauge, 10 gauge, 11 gauge, 12 gauge, there's even as high as like 15 gauge, or you know, then you get into like bass strings, which are even heavier. But basically what I learned is that and a long time ago, I kind of somehow on the internet I got this tip, which is basically, it was about why Jimi Hendrix, who of course was a huge inspiration for the mixtape I just released, rest in peace Jimi Hendrix, he played in E flat standard as opposed to E standard, which is what most people play, especially on like Gibson guitars. So for those who don't know, the quote-unquote Gibson scale is smaller or shorter in length of the total scale length than the Fender guitar series. You know, there's different models, but basically this, if you take a Fender Stratocaster or Telecaster, and you take a Gibson or Squier, you know, they're a budget brand, and then you take a Gibson or some people say Epiphone. I kind of like saying Epiphany. I don't think it's actually, I think people say Epiphone, but anyway, the Les Paul scales 24.75 inches. You guys gotta watch that SNL video on George Washington's speech about our United States system of weights and measurements. It's so funny. So anyway, Americans, we have this thing called inches. So 24.75 inches is a Les Paul scale, so plus 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch. So the Fender scale is 25.5. By the way, for those who didn't know, so Fender eventually was bought by a company, but then Leo Fender, who's basically the inventor of the Fender guitar, he ended up starting another company called Music Man, Ernie Ball Music Man, which now has spun off into an amazing company, but that leadership kind of took a different direction. And so the last company that Leo Fender worked for was this guitar company called G&L, like G ampersand letter L, and it still exists, and they make just as good of products as Fender. Why am I saying all this? I don't know. I think the world of guitars is so interesting to me. I've been playing guitar for a long time, but as a teenager kind of got away from it. But so the science is basically like, so for example, they also make mini guitars like for kids, you know. So a mini guitar actually has, most of them I think are 2 inches shorter than the or like 2 to 3 inches shorter basically than the normal kind of adult scale. But you know, it's like you take, I think it's not rocket science. Like if I do this, the shorter, the more I go up, the shorter the string, the higher the pitch. So basically, if you just sort of measure, like, you know, the total length or distance of the lowest, you call this a fret, right? So in the chromatic scale, Western music, it's 12 notes, and then the minor and major scale are 7 of the 12. Pentatonic is 5 of the 12. Oh, wait. 4. Sorry, I'm really tired. Anyway, shout out Lloyd Gregory, my guitar teacher. So, what am I trying to say? Basically, so because Jimi Hendrix was a smart guy, and one of the reasons Jimi Hendrix got to be so good, which I'm nowhere near, it just goes without saying, he was just amazing. There were so many good guitar players, too many to name, so many, but all good guitar, for those of you who want to learn anything in life, guitar, I mean, what's cool about guitar is it's just a good metaphor, whether you want to get better at figure skating or making wooden figurines, or you want to be a sous chef in a restaurant or be a tour guide. Like, it doesn't matter what you want to do in life, but you need to spend time to get acquainted, to get familiar with whatever is I like this word, substrate, like the material or the medium. Learned this from Logan Allen again, so like the medium is the message. That was a saying by a media theorist, Marshall McLuhan, meaning, if we use computers, or if we read newspapers, or if we draw and make comic books, or if we make skateboards or clothes, or you're a private equity analyst, or you're a rocket engineer, or a nurse, or you clean up polluted rivers, like whatever you do, you use tools. If you're an aquaponic farmer, like there's, whether it's a boat or a boombox or a bottle of coffee, like design is basically the language that integrates a lot of these things. Most of our products have words, symbols, images, archetypes, which goes back to tarot and just symbols, language, like Mandarin, or code, like algorithms, art. And music is kind of this weird hybrid language that exists. Intrinsically, it's meaningful, but you don't really know it until... See, what I want to basically inspire people, if I can be so bold as to hope that I can inspire people, is to realize or recognize that listening to music is one thing, but playing music is another. And I know that that sounds really straight, like, duh. But I think that's actually maybe taken for granted by people sometimes, like, especially now that there is so much music, and we live in a big world, and there's a big internet, and there's a big cosmos, and there's infinities of waveforms and genres, and so Jimi Hendrix, he was listening, like in athletics, great coaches talk about listening to your body, or just health practitioners in general, especially the more gentle ones, like with children and women, and not so alpha, macho, machismo men or people, whatever your gender is, but more like the sigma, sort of the more Jupiter, Venus, like integrated, not weak, but supple and forgiving, like, the film Whiplash, one of the greatest films of all time in my strong opinion, and like, a lot of athletes, I kind of went through this in a sense, like there was just to keep it kind of what's the word? I guess, neutral in tone. Like, competition can lead to pressure, and but great athletes, and this is where I'm inspired by rap. Like, this is happening. It's how it's always happened. I mean, it's even happened in ancient history. You know, or the poets of ancient history. There was oration, the orators, the speakers, the lawyers. You know, whether it was Saint Augustine, or Augustine, or if it was Saint Teresa of Avila, or and then, you know, one of the books that really inspired me that I read when I was 16 years old was this book by a student I mentioned earlier, the media theorist Marshall McLuhan. There was a student of his named Neil Postman. He wrote a book called The Disappearance of Childhood, which itself is a pretty bold title. The Disappearance of Childhood. Like, when I saw that book title and it had this bold red cover, and just going through what I went through and what I was also witnessing, I knew at an intuitive level, peers in my class and girlfriends. Well, I really had one girlfriend. I broke her heart, but thankfully we've kind of made up and we're friends again today. As hard, as difficult as that's been, you know who you are. But it used to be that when there were books, it created a distinction of literacy, literally. So there were those who were not literate, and there was those who were literate. And the argument of the book by Neil Postman, The Disappearance of Childhood, is that it was the invention of the printing press that effectively instantiated the social concept at all of childhood and adulthood. And that basically, before the invention of the printing press, children, meaning biological pupils, you know, or teenagers or preteens, you know, those who were not, they were just considered like little adults. And you can even see this in artwork where you have like, just, you know, I'm generalizing, but like you'd see, like, I'm sort of paraphrasing, you basically see like 7-year-olds like portrayed in these paintings but it was like the settings of, you know, brothels and pubs and bars, you know, and there's alcohol and debauchery and, you know, very hedonistic, but kind of it's not even that it was like so maybe that could be turned to an extreme where it could be malefic. And so, like the movie about Saint Augustine, he was almost kind of like the top frat boy of the frat boy law student bros of like ancient Rome. You know, he basically ended up being it'd be like if you were Secretary of State. Like, he was like the chief lawyer for the Emperor of Rome. But like, even like Jordan Peterson or people, you know, they talk about like when you speak lies, even if you don't know that they're lies when you speak them, but there's something about truth that reveals itself. And even in mystical Judaism, like the Zohar, the Book of Light, like there's especially in the opening Genesis, you know, it's all about, you know, light and how spirit both reveals itself and conceals itself. And the Bhagavatam, the Vedic Bible, I don't like kind of phrasing it that way, but just to keep it at a beginner level, it's basically what the book is about, is that it takes it a level beyond that, where it's so, not to enter a critical, because it's like, why should we be critical or judgmental of people who are beginning to explore the world of spirit? We shouldn't. That's what life is about. Like, if I ever have kids someday and they start asking me questions like, why is the grass green, or why does evil exist, or these are big questions that I don't even have the answers to, but we still have to try, right? And like, when I was at boarding school, I took an existentialism class. And I talked with a close friend of mine, a computer programmer friend, about an existential philosopher, a Danish philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard, who spoke about, he talked about the night of faith with a K, K-N-I, night. Or like the Christopher Nolan movies about the Dark Knight, Batman, like maybe controversial films. Some people love those films, some people hate the films. Maybe it's too intense for some people, maybe it's right on the money for some other audiences. But bringing this back to guitar, like, you know, one of my favorite bands is, or I should say, one of my favorite movements in music, you know, comes from Africa. It's basically African blues. And if you kind of recognize the history of basically the electric guitar and of the literal innovation of the guitar electric amplifier, and in America, it was basically Muddy Waters, you know, who moved to Chicago from Mississippi, who, you know, his album Electric Mud, I would put in my pantheon, you know, top 10 albums of all time is Muddy Waters, Electric Mud. And Muddy Waters was basically Jimi Hendrix's teacher. And literally, you know, before the innovation of the electric guitar amplifier and the electric guitar, like in Chicago, you know, they were playing all acoustically. If you want to go really, really back, you want to go back to France, Django Reinhardt, gypsy jazz, you know, like, and then if you want to take it even further back, like again in ancient society, you had lute players and bards, and then of course in the Bhagavatam, ancient Vedic culture, or ancient China, is music's why. It's like, why do trees exist? Why do the birds sing? Why, if I drop a rock on the ground, does it make a sound? You know, it's because the idea about, again, just spirit, is that it's not just like, in a pejorative sense, it's not just like a energy, or it's not just like a higher power. It's actually a being. It's a person. It's and the person, you know, who that is named Bhagwan, and you could take that in really kind of a genderless, if you can have some receptivity for the idea, and it explains a lot. I think there's a great kind of cultural, dare say, sort of political divide right now, especially in the United States, but it's affecting the entire world. China, all kinds of places, Middle East, where we're so confused about gender. And I even had a girlfriend last year, and I tried to express to her even I'm not afraid of basically calling myself gender fluid, but for me, I'm going on a lot of tangents, but just, I hope you're following me. Like, for me, and this is completely opinionated, this is not a rule of how one should live their life, but I love feminine energy. And for me, one of the most feminine things that I could do is receive myself as I am. And for better or for worse, I was born into this body from my biological parents, and I'm 6'5", and I was a American football quarterback, and I work out at the gym, I lift weights, I run, I sprint. I don't really skateboard. I would love to get better at skateboarding. If anybody wants to teach me, or just hang out, like, and watch me fail at ollieing 3 steps and stuff until I shatter some bones, I don't know. But that's actually not a bad segue, because, like, I mean, what I've respected skate culture for a long time. My little stepbrother and I, growing up, would kind of just, in a very, like, I would say we were basically lower middle class in the sense that we had stability for a period of time that we lived together, but it was kind of in the middle of nowhere, a beautiful place up in northern rural California, wine country, but there just, like, wasn't really a lot going on. And I think maybe the benefit of that was, like, we didn't really get into too many like from the movie Super Troopers. We didn't really get into too many shenanigans, but we were pretty like PG or kind of Disney. Like one of our favorite TV shows was the Naked Brothers Band. That was like one of the best shows we watched. It was just so innocent. And of course I had a little sister, so like we watched Hannah Montana, I watched SpongeBob. But in a weird way, like so maybe where I'm trying to get at is like, if I can be inspiring for anybody, like I'm 28 years old, like I'm kind of old, you know, like, you know, like I'm not like a, you know what I'm saying, like, I should have a lot more of my life together, and like I should not be trying to live out fantasies or something, but I think maybe my puppy Sky, my dog, I think he's been maybe helping me kind of be or stay young at heart. I mean, he's so playful, it's overwhelming sometimes. And but I think it's like the way that like skateboarders skate, or the way that painters paint, the way that coders code, your musicians play, or the way that leaders lead. Like, you got to do what you love to do. And if you don't know what you love to do, just ask yourself what you're already doing, and that's probably not a bad starting place. Thank goodness that I rediscovered guitar, because I was pretty lost for, like, you know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I was just really like overloaded, and I just forgot about playing music, and it's brought me back to my inner truth. And even if I'm just repeating the same little circles, I'm just going in circles, like it's like so silly. It's like, so these nylon strings are basically easier to play. The reason Jimi Hendrix tuned his guitar down is because it lowered the action, is what you call it, the distance of the strings to the frets. So it made it a little more like sensitive to the touch, and so he could basically practice longer. There's an amazing mixed martial arts coach named Firas Zahabi from Canada, who recommends a similar approach to martial arts training, where it's all about technique, and so you don't want to go 100% or even 90%, even 80%. You don't want to do that all the time, because you're just going to burn yourself out. You really want to be more like, so what's been so inspiring for me is capoeira, which is how Ido Portal got into movement culture via Brazil when he was young. You know, he had capoeiristas from Brazil as his movement original teachers. And so on my mixtape, I sample Brazilian, it's not directly capoeira music necessarily, but I've seen many Instagram videos of capoeiristas present day who, this group from Brazil, I forget off the top of my head when that tape was recorded or when it came out, but it's so what I have needed to kind of heal from modernity, essentially. And you know, playing this, like, I just play this unplugged, and I live out of my car, and you know, sometimes I DoorDash for some money, and I can like barely pay for food for me and my puppy. I buy rice at Walmart. Sometimes, like, I spent $75 yesterday at the San Diego vegan market, which is something I don't normally do. But I'm trying to just put myself out there more, speak my truth, put things online, try to begin conversations. A lot of people were kind of worried about me or concerned for a fair amount of time. So I just want to let you all know that like I'm good, I'm okay. We worked it all out, so there's nothing to fear. There's a lot of things I'm still trying to understand. So I'm looking for teachers in various, skill sets. I'm kind of a bridge piece, maybe. My close friend Trent from Santa Cruz, he's been life-changing for me and encouraging me to keep deepening into my being like a romantic generalist, which doesn't mean being a jack of all trades, again, as a pejorative. It means having that joie de vivre, realizing that it's healthy and encouraged to like lots of things like art and music and technology. And we should care about society, we should care about people, we should pay some attention to politics. It does matter who our leaders are, and democracy is important. But if we have good leaders, they should be encouraged to keep remaining in their leadership roles, so long as they have the desire and they're getting the meaning from it, and they're being supported. And the only way we're going to have better leaders in our world, it's not going to come from fighting. It's going to come from us, those of us who, I don't even know if I can call myself this yet, but I know that I resonate with people who want to become healers. And I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm looking for those kinds of people who are interested in healing, which doesn't mean standing on a pedestal, whatever, standing on a soapbox, and which I guess is kind of what I'm doing now. But these are more like my, like my Usher confessions or something, where this is more like my, or keaton. I talked about that in the last video. This is me speaking my truth. And I mean, right now I'm literally talking to a camera by myself, and my puppy's here, and like I'm gonna put this on the internet, inshallah, right, if God allows it, like, which I hope that Spirit does. That's my intention, So there's my body, and we need bodies to have a vantage point and a presence. I love what Osho spoke. Osho was controversial, but I think really, if there was any controversy around Osho, it was because of people who didn't actually receive Osho's teachings, who went astray, and then he was blamed. No one's a perfect person, so I'm maybe that's an overstatement. And in general, what I want to prove to people is that there's a rare acoustic recording of a song by John Lennon that he just called God. And he just said he doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't believe in heroes. He just believes in me. He believes in him, and which is that the most braggadocious, cocky, arrogant, conceited, self-centered thing to do? Well, if you're not doing it from a place of love, you're doing it from a place of domination and wanting to push people down and steal from people. If you want to be an energy vampire, that's why I don't eat meat anymore. Or, I mean, I can't even remember the last time I did voluntarily. It's, vegetarianism. Like, I do think that there's, I guess I've been in such solitude. I do have a lot of friendly interactions. I'm blessed with so many of the interactions that I have. But I'm recognizing more and more that, like, there's a difference between, it's not even like what, we have all these English words that like really shouldn't even exist, because you can go, I talked about capitalism in the last video versus, what I call mercantilism. And so, like, when I went to the vegan market yesterday in San Diego and I spoke with the owner, Sonny, like, I had nothing else on my schedule. I had nowhere else I needed to be. I was fully there. I just wanted to experience him as a person and appreciate that that's how he's spending his life. He doesn't have to be doing that. Like, he could be exploiting people. The place was just so clean, and the products that were being served are so rich, so pure, you know? Like, we gotta show up and be present for artisans and people who actually give extra care. So, you know, I love Guitar Center because they're just very efficient, but sometimes it's also very chaotic. You know, this guitar, I got it Norm's Rare Guitars, and it feels like a rare guitar. It feels like it's elevating me to a new place. So maybe that's kind of enough philosophy or keaton or mysticism perhaps for one video. But going back to the guitar thing, my intentions for my next experiment. So basically, Jimi Hendrix figured out if he lowers the action on the Stratocaster, which has a longer scale, so he played in E flat standard. I also mentioned that these normal strings that aren't flat wound, they're not as slippery, so they're kind of grippy, like skateboard grip tape. But then they also have this kind of squeaky sound. But then you just have to know in your technique, like you actually have to kind of, almost like a spider, like you have to kind of lift your hands up as opposed to sliding more like train tracks. And if you watch some of the great classical players, that you know when you see them that they do that, and the sound sounds so much better. So what I realized through an experiment I did with a different acoustic electric guitar, an Alvarez, which I recorded a demo of House of the Rising Sun. What I realized is that if you take basically a heavy set of strings and a lighter set of strings, so let's say you take 10 gauge and 12 gauge, or 11 gauge and 12 gauge even kind of works. The thickness basically creates a natural difference of like if you had the same, if you stretch the tuners the same amount of times for both strings, one note would be lower than the other. Am I wrong? No, like I've done this, so this is what I discovered. So if you look at basically the way that we tune like E standard, let's just use a reference point. So E, A, D, G, B, and then high E, right, from low to high, right? So 6th string to 1st string. Now, if you lower all those notes, if you can write this out on paper, if you want to do the math equation, so to speak, you lower all those notes by 2, so then it's D, G, C, F, A, D, pretty sure. So what you'll notice if you write those two sequences out on a piece of paper is there's overlap, but the octaves aren't the same as normal standard tuning. So what that means is that if you actually swap the strings around using this configuration, you can create what's called a different voicing. And so I do this on my House of the Rising Sun cover, where I push them around. And so my idea is basically, because the top 3 strings on nylon string guitars are the literal nylon, you got these nice, you know, high, you know, the kind of warm, like flamenco kind of sexy, you know, sound, but there's no metal, so they don't amplify it. So the way you have to amplify it, you know, is through you basically you have to be in kind of an open mic or a more like theater, you know, professional classical environment, or a restaurant, you know, somewhere where it's not so loud and crazy chaotic like a festival rave, you know. And frankly, I might even kind of prefer those places, to be honest. I've never even really been to any, or like I've been to very few electronic or kind of big time concerts. The one exception is when I was, well, I guess it's more of an arena stadium thing, but when I was 13, I went to see Green Day. When I was in high school, I saw Coldplay, I saw U2, AC/DC. I was very lucky. And then I saw an electronic concert. I saw RL Grime, Diplo, Major Lazer. This past year, I went and saw Haunted Mound in Atlanta. I saw Danny Brown. So basically, with the lower strings on the nylon strings, they're more bendy because it's a nylon core, which means it's kind of more elastic, but it is wrapped in metal, so it does amplify. So what I'm basically kind of wanting to do is try putting the metal, the metal covered nylon strings with the different voicing, so that I can get as many metal strings as possible. I don't even know if I can do all 6. I might even only be able to do 4 or 5. But if they're all metal, wrapped, meaning, and then I just do that on a normal, so another thing about when it comes to acoustic versus electric, so the hybrid are called semi-hollow guitars, and so the center block basically anchors the pickups. They basically pick up, I guess, some amount. If you see the little, they call them the F-holes on the sides of the semi-hollow guitars, it picks up some of that warmth, but not the same amount as an acoustic or a fully hollow jazz guitar. But why would that be a good thing? Because basically, if you're in a very, very loud environment, unless you have very professional mixing engineers, like you're a big-time rock star like Post Malone or a country star or Taylor Swift, like performing in a big venue, like if you're just kind of a garage underground trying to get started musician and you don't have those kind of resources, like that could crush your set if the cavity, the hollow body of the guitar picks up so much feedback that then it just like ruins everybody's experience, you know, because of the loud noise. So semi-hollow guitar fixes that, and semi-hollow guitars are lighter weight than fully solid electric guitars. Somebody really needs to make, if there are any guitar manufacturers, someone should make a mini semi-hollow guitar. I don't think I've found one yet. Halo Guitars, I know, is a brand that does some custom stuff. I think they could do one that could be really cool, but the body would have to be kind of more like kid shaped. I'm surprised there's not, maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but I do a lot of guitar, like, it's like, you can tell, it's like my hobby, right? And I'm like kind of a nerd about it, and like I'm as much or more of a nerd about it as I used to be with football at this point. Like this is now my thing. So anybody who is trying to still see me as I used to be one way or another, like this is who I am now. So you'll start to see, if God allows it, like, and my friends are supporting me, thank God, and my family is supporting me. So thank everybody who's supported me. I would try to do a song, but I'm so tired and I don't want to butcher it and ruin this recording. I think I need to take a vacation. Yeah, I know Sky wants a vacation. Sky would love to go to somewhere sunny. But actually, he kind of likes the rain. It's been sort of rainy here in SoCal, surprisingly. Super rainy in NorCal. I mean, it's wintertime. Pacific Northwest, obviously, snow. Tahoe, Colorado, all kinds of places. Winter taking over the whole East Coast, and I'm just speaking as an American, right? But somewhere in the world, that's maybe the takeaway for the day. No matter where you are, it's like, how does sunlight create shadow? Well, like darkness isn't really a real thing. It's just the absence of sunlight, you know. But somewhere, I'm telling you, if you just have faith, there's a light there. But you gotta believe it. So on that note, stay sunny. Yeah, this video is sponsored by Hurry.